The information provided in this podcast does not and is not intended to constitute legal advice. Instead, all information, content, and materials presented are for general informational and entertainment purposes only. You should contact your attorney to obtain advice with respect to any particular legal matter. No listener of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information presented in this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel in the relevant jurisdiction. Real talk.
I heard about you. Didn't think you were real. I'm real when it's useful.
Real talk.
On Halloween night 2014, I was driving through the small town of Leland, North Carolina, which, if you don't know, is a kind of a small backwoods, like not a farm town, but it's a very small town. Not a lot going on there. The main road was like 2 lanes wide, and it was Halloween. It was right after trick or treating got done. It was about 1 a.m. I was driving, me and 2 buddies, and we were staying up all night. We left the house at like 1 a.m. to go and get McDonald's in the center of town. There was no one on the road at all, and it was just us going to get McDonald's and driving back. We get our food. A cop follows us through the drive-thru, and he follows us out of the drive-thru and back up the main road. We enter the part of the main road that's 2 lanes wide, by the way, where it's kind of like a wooded area, no street lights, no real houses. It's just dead. And we're the only ones on the road other than this cop who's tailing behind me. I guess my tire, my driver's steer tire, went over the middle yellow line in the road. Cop flicks on his lights, pulls me over. And he comes up to the car and he's like, I've been following you since McDonald's. I was like, yeah, I know. Why? He's like, well, you're kind of swerving all over the road there. I was like, was I though? There's no street lights out here. I can't see, and also there's no one driving. But it was a holiday night. 3 teenagers in a car getting McDonald's. These dudes must have been drinking, must have been smoking, must have been up to something. But full disclosure, I swear on my life, didn't have a drink, didn't have anything to smoke, no drugs, no alcohol, nothing. We did nothing that night. We're a couple of nerds playing video games late, and we wanted some McDonald's. That's it. No partying going on whatsoever. But he didn't have anything going on in this town on this holiday night, so he wanted something. I was the most action he was going to get that night. He pulls me over, and he asks me all the usual stuff. He's leaning in my car real heavy, I noticed. I had to, lean away from him. But he's like, you guys been drinking tonight, partying? I was like, oh, no, just going back to the house. Had to get McDonald's. He's like, why are you getting McDonald's so late? I was like, because we were hungry, Asked me all kinds of questions. He asked me to step out of the car, which I do. His backup arrives behind him. I'm like, what the hell? Why is there a second cop car showing up? It's a slow night, which it was. There's no cars on the road. He asked me to come behind my car. And he's like, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a series of tests to see how sober you are. You good with that? I was like, yeah, whatever. I had nothing today. So he breathalyzes me. I blow into the thing. He makes me walk in a straight line, makes me hold my arms out straight like a T-pose and touch my finger to my nose, alternating hands. Meanwhile, while he's doing these sobriety tests, which I'm acing with flying colors, his backup, his partner, is leaning hard into the window of my car, talking to my friends in the backseat, like, what you guys getting into tonight? You guys know of any cool parties? You guys going to a party or something like that? What's going on? Trying to figure something out. We were all like 18 at the time, under the drinking age. He was like, and the cop who was giving me sobriety tests, he was like, well, I'm just trying to make sure you weren't drinking tonight. I was like, I'm only 18. I haven't anything to drink. He's like, well, that doesn't mean shit. I was like, all right, relax, guy. He shines his LED flashlight in my eye, 1:30 a.m. This is like 20 minutes. This is going on for like 20 minutes at this point. He shines his flashlight in my eyes and he makes me follow the pen with just my eyes, not moving my head. And I do. I follow the pen left, right, left, right. He puts it away in a fit of frustration. His backup officer walks over. He's like, "Oh, the only thing I smell in that car is McDonald's." And the officer giving me the sobriety tests says, "Well, you know, you had a hard time. Your left eye was struggling a little bit following the pen, so it means you're on something." I was like, "Well, that's not accurate." He's like, "Oh, my test never fails." I said, "Well, it's time for you to get a new test then." He must not have liked that. But makes me put my hands on my trunk. He pats me down, pulls a pocket knife out of my back pocket, throws it on the trunk, pulls my keys out, shit like that. He's patting me down. This whole ordeal has taken like 30 minutes at this point. And he's got nothing. Completely sober, did nothing but drove over the yellow line a little bit. Wasn't even speeding. After about 35, 40 minutes, he sends me on his way with a ticket for failing to maintain lane. And he's like, "All right, you guys have yourself a good night. Stay out of trouble." And him and his buddy go off. I got a ticket for failing to maintain lane, but I had to go through all of that. Now, I wasn't nervous in the least because I had nothing to hide. I had nothing in the car that was contraband. I was not on anything. I wasn't drunk. Had nothing, not even a sip that day. I was not worried about anything. Completely 100% innocent except for allegedly going over the line in the center of the road. So I was not nervous. I was like, "Yeah, dude, test me whatever you want." It's only now that I realized just how damn close I was to potentially even being arrested for nothing. How close I was to having a lot worse come of that. I had no idea the potential trouble I was opening myself up to by just cooperating in that scenario. I did everything he asked. But I made so many mistakes in that situation, you would not believe. So, why am I telling you all this? Because it's a pretty uninteresting traffic stop, pretty uneventful, but it is such a good example of how ill-prepared I was for a traffic stop. And although I was innocent and wasn't doing anything, and I had nothing to hide, and I cooperated to the fullest extent of the law, blah, 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 I could have very easily been screwed over by that. I mean, if I didn't have two witnesses in the car, there is no telling what would have happened. But I don't want anyone to be ill-prepared. So I want to give you some advice today. I'm going to flex real quick. I got a bachelor's degree in criminology with a minor in psychology, and I haven't done shit with it. But this podcast is the closest I'm probably going to have to me doing something with that information. So I'm going to make it happen. And I'm going to give you some advice that I think you need to hear and hopefully never have to, but probably will have to use. And disclaimer, this is not legal advice. I am not a lawyer. I am not a member of law enforcement. This is just what I've learned through research. Do not take this as actual legal advice. This is real talk. You know what it is. But here's what I know. I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do the next time you are stopped by police. Because I wish someone had told me this years ago. Now, yet another disclaimer. I know a few police officers. I know a few members of law enforcement personally. All the respect in the world to these individuals and other members of law enforcement. I know it's a highly politicized topic right now, and people don't like talking about it, or people love taking one side or another. You know, I understand the public discourse around police and law enforcement, and I come from Massachusetts, man. That's a very blue state. Police are like local heroes there. Look, We're not getting into that. This is not an opinionated podcast. Everything I'm going to spit here is facts. And you're not getting opinions one way or another. There's no taking sides in this. So it doesn't matter what your opinions on law enforcement is or isn't. Much respect to every police officer I've ever met in my life and all the ones who are out there. If you know any police officers, thank them for what they do, putting their lives on the line every day. It's a very hard job, and I don't believe they get the credit that they deserve. If you have ill feelings towards police officers, good for you. You're welcome to have those feelings. It's a country where free speech is very much encouraged. Please vocalize your opinions, right? There's some bad shit out there. I'm not taking a side on this. It's not what this is about. This is not a pro-police or an anti-police podcast. This is information for you. And do not take what I say here as anything other than the opinions of myself. Anything I say here is not representative of anyone outside of myself. Anyone who's guested on this podcast, made an appearance, related to me, talking to me, friends, whatever. None of that, okay? So everything I say here is coming from me and me only. With that being said, unless you are the victim of a crime, you should not talk to police. That's it. Plain and simple. Unless you are the victim of a crime or an accident, do not talk to police. Do not talk to them. Do not give them anything. Police are not your friends. Active duty police officers are not your friends. They, more often than not, do not have your well-being in mind. They are not here to take care of you. They are here to enforce laws and put guilty people behind bars. If you're related to police officers or if you're friends with police officers that you grew up with or anything like that, much love to them. Talk to them all you want. But when they're on the job, police officers are not to be talked to. This is a transaction. It is not a conversation. Police will be like, oh, we're just having a conversation. We're just talking. No, you do not have conversations with on-duty police officers. It is a transaction. It is a business transaction. You are the civilian. They are the law enforcement. This is a transaction that needs to happen the same way every single time. Even if, and especially if, you are innocent and have not committed any crimes. I cannot stress this enough. Do not talk to them. Now, what specifically do I mean? Do I mean ignore them and run away? No. I'm going to explain to you, and I'm going to give you scenarios that you're going to run into. And when you run into these scenarios, I need you to remember what I'm telling you here because I have done the research. I have done hours of research before I hit record on this episode. I want you to know this. Not only just don't talk to police officers, but you need to know that you don't have to talk to police officers. In most scenarios, you're going to be surprised just how little you need to give them. Everybody knows about your Miranda rights. You know that you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one will be provided to you. Do you understand these laws if I have read them to you? Blah, blah, blah. You know the deal. I'm not quoting it exactly. I'm just going off memory because I've heard it so much. But let's talk about the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment of the Constitution protects individuals from incriminating themselves. You have a right not to incriminate yourself. What does that mean? You have the right to protect yourself and not aid in any investigation into yourself. If you are the suspect of something, you don't have to give the police anything that would incriminate you. Even if you are innocent, you may not even realize that there's an investigation going against you. When a cop is just asking you questions about where you've been tonight and what you've been up to, they're not your friends. They could very well be doing an investigation into you. You have the right not to incriminate yourself. Police officers know this. You do not have to give them anything. But so many people do. So many people do because they just think that, oh, I haven't done anything wrong. I haven't been drinking. Whatever. Hey, you want to pull me over, breathalyze me, and do all the sobriety tests while your partner leans into my car, whatever. You don't have to agree to any of that. The simplest terms, I'm just going to give you some scenarios here. Rule number 1, every interaction you have with the police needs to be filmed. Everyone's got a smartphone. Everyone is with someone who has a smartphone. You need to be recording every interaction with the police at all times on at least one device. Okay? Every one of these scenarios I'm going to give you, you better be recording this police officer. So, in the unlikely scenario that you're just walking down the sidewalk in a public place where you're allowed to be, you're not loitering or littering or doing anything wrong, you're just walking down the sidewalk, and a police officer comes up to you to ask you some questions. It just seems like friendly conversation. Hey, can you help me out a little bit? Something like that. You can literally ignore them and walk away. Did you know that? I bet you didn't. If a police officer approaches you while you're in public and doesn't suspect you of any crime, you can just walk away. You literally don't even have to answer them. Now, it's very easy for someone who's having a bad day with a badge to twist that into fleeing the scene. But here's how you do this. Police officer comes up to you and just goes, hey guys, hey, can I ask you something? Maybe they're helping with an investigation or they're managing traffic or whatever in the area, and you just happen to be walking by. Here's what you say. Am I being detained? And here's what they'll say. Oh, I just wanted to ask you some questions. And here's what you say again. Am I being detained? I'm just striking up a conversation with you. Am I being detained? No, you're not being detained. I just wanted to ask you a question. Oh, okay, then am I free to go? Well, I'm just trying to strike up conversation with you. What are you in a hurry for? What are you running away from? Am I free to go? They have to answer it. If they say you are not being detained and you are free to go, you're free to go. Walk away. You do not owe them any conversation. You do not have to do anything with them. You might not be involved in anything they've got going on in the area. You don't have to talk to them. As long as you're not being detained, which you can ask them and they'll have to answer you. As long as you're not being detained, you have no reason to be talking to them. Do not talk to them at all. And they'll beat around the bush and they'll be like, oh, well, I'm just striking up conversation. You know, we had a lot of action in the area. We're just trying to make sure. Oh, okay. Hey, am I being detained? No. Well then, am I free to go? And no matter how many times you have to ask the same question in the same verbiage to get them to stop beating around the bush, get them to answer you. And the answer is yes, you walk away. Don't talk to them. Don't even tell them your name. Now, if a police officer stops you on the street and asks you for your ID, there's only a few scenarios in which you would have to present them your ID. If you are in one of the 23 states that are considered stop and ID states, Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Mexico, North Dakota, Ohio, Rhode Island, Utah, Vermont, or Wisconsin. If you are in one of those states, you may be required to present your identification to a police officer if they suspect you of committing a crime, in which case you are being detained. However, if they do not suspect you of committing a crime, even in one of those 23 states, you are not legally required to show them your identification. Now, if you are in one of those 23 states and they ask you for your ID, your next question should be, am I being detained? They might say yes. But if they're asking for your ID in one of those 23 states, you say, what crime do you suspect me of committing? And we're going to get into that a little bit later. But as far as identification, unless they suspect you of committing a crime or about to be committing a crime in one of those 23 states, you are not legally required to show your ID. It's called stop and ID. You can tell them your first name, But you don't have to tell them your last name or your address. They do not need your ID. If they're just stopping you on the street to just chat, you don't need to present your ID. Another reminder, you should be recording every interaction, and you are allowed to record police always, every time. If you are on public property or you're being stopped by police, record every single time. Now, let's say you're stopped by police just walking down the street and you are being detained. You say, am I being detained? And they say, yes, you're being detained. Here's what you say next, because your next words are very important. You say, what crime do you suspect me of committing? And they'll give you some answer, right? They'll beat around the bush a little bit, or they'll say, well, we had a couple of break-ins in the area and you just seem to be fitting the description. Dude, it might not even be you. If you're 100% innocent, you do not need to plead your case with the police officer. That's what court is for. Obviously you want to avoid getting to that point, but you do not plead your case with the police. You plead your case with the judge. What crime do you suspect me of committing? They'll tell you something or other. And if they tell you a crime that they suspect you of committing, or that they love to use, I suspect you're about to commit a crime, you say, okay, how did you articulate that suspicion? Use the word articulate. They know what you're getting at. They go, it doesn't matter what their answer is. Most of them will just go, you know what? I don't have to answer that for you, but you are being detained until we can figure out who you are. If you're in one of those 23 states that I named, make sure you give them your ID if they ask. But if you are being detained and they suspect you of committing a crime, or the inevitability of you committing a crime, I guess you would call it, here's your next line. You shut the fuck up. Straight up, you stop talking. You say, okay, I invoke the Fifth, which is the right to not incriminate yourself or aid in an investigation into yourself. I invoke the Fifth Amendment. I'm going to remain silent. I do not consent to search or seizure. You have to say that. I invoke the Fifth. I'm going to remain silent. I don't answer questions. I do not consent to search or seizure. Now you can say, I'm going to remain silent without a lawyer present. That's probably better. Say, I invoke the Fifth. I'm going to remain silent without a lawyer present. I do not consent to any search or seizures. And they'll do their business or whatever. They might ask you some questions. They may be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You don't need to fly off the handle here. I'm just asking you where you've been. And you say the magical line, I don't answer questions. What have you been up to today? I don't answer questions. Where are you going? I don't answer questions. Why don't you answer questions? I don't answer questions. Is this really how you want to play it? I don't answer questions. Are you aware you're being detained? I don't answer questions. Would you like to go to jail? I don't answer questions. Will you answer questions down at the police station? I don't answer questions. Doesn't matter. I don't answer questions. You do not answer questions without a lawyer standing next to you. Always 100% of the time. No exceptions. Now, I'm being a little abrasive and comedic with my delivery here in this podcast. Obviously, be polite. These guys are just doing their job. Obviously, be cordial and be polite. It goes a long way. Don't be a jackass like I'm pretending to come off as. But bottom line, I don't answer questions. Okay? Anything you do say can and probably will be used against you in court. That's why they tell you this. You have the right not to incriminate yourself. Don't answer any questions without a lawyer. Now, you can ask, am I under arrest? And if you get arrested in any scenario, shut up. Don't answer any questions. Remain silent and wait for a lawyer. Do not say a word. Do not answer a question until a lawyer gets there. If you don't have a lawyer phone number that you can call, they will provide you one. Don't say anything, innocent or not. Doesn't matter if the Burger King was robbed down the street and you just happen to be walking down the sidewalk. If you're not involved in that, if you're innocent, do not plead your case with them. They might not have any suspects, and they might need you to close this case. They need someone who fits the description, and you fit enough. That's all they need. You would not believe how many people are in jail for crimes they didn't commit. It's because they didn't shut up. It's because they didn't shut up and they answered questions. So number one rule, I don't answer questions. That's it. If you committed a crime, or even if you didn't commit a crime, if you are under arrest, you plead your case with the court, not the arresting officer. Every single word is being recorded in a transcript after he puts you in jail. Do not answer questions. Got off on a tangent there, but let's get to a real world scenario where you're maybe pulled over by the police, since that's much more likely. You're pulled over for speeding. You're pulled over for a broken headlight. You're pulled over for allegedly drunk driving. You're pulled over for, if you're like me, driving your tire over the middle lane when there's damn nobody on the road at 1 a.m. Doesn't matter. You're pulled over. Here's how it's going to go. Police officer pulls you over. You pull over immediately, throw your hazards on. Keep your car on. Roll your window down, your driver window down halfway. You do not have to roll it down all the way. As long as he can hear you and you can hear him and you can converse that way, that's all you have to roll it down. Again, record this entire stop. If you don't have a dash camera with a cabin dash cam interior view, now's a good time to get one. I got one just by learning about this. Get a dash cam, hold up your phone. You got a passenger, have them hold up your phone, hold up their phone, whatever. But you need to record this interaction, start to finish. Officer's going to walk up to you after running your plate. They're going to touch their hand to your taillight. They'll leave their fingerprints on it. And they're going to open up a number of different ways. Now, something you need to get into the conversation early as possible, preferably the first thing said between you two, if you can, although I know sometimes conversation doesn't play out that way. You need to say, "Good evening, officer. Can I please have your name and badge number?" And they will provide it to you. If they don't provide it to you, you've got a problem. You have a problem, police officer. They need to provide that to you. 99.9 times out of 100, they will. Also tell them, just so you know, you are being recorded right now. Ask them, are you wearing a body cam, and is the footage available for public record? They might not be wearing a body cam, but they might be. There's a lot wearing body cams nowadays. Get those out of the way. You like to make it known that you're being recorded, not just as a courtesy, but because that might prevent any wrongdoing, should there be any. But I digress. They're going to open up with one of their common lines. Most commonly, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" And let's just go down this scenario. We're going to treat it like a flow chart. If they open with, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" You say these words exactly. "Officer, I am not sure why you pulled me over." Doesn't matter if you talk like a robot. Talk like a robot. You need to be very specific with your words, because they can mince your words, and some of the experienced officers, they're good at mincing your words. Be very specific. "I am not sure why you pulled me over." All the while, this is being recorded. So, now they'll give you some reason as to why they pulled you over. Speeding or, failing to maintain lane, whatever. He'll tell you his reasons. Now, when they tell you what they pulled you over for, don't argue it. Don't agree to it, obviously, but don't say no. You can't say yes or no in regards to confirmation of whether or not you did this. If you go, "Yeah, I know, I really gotta go to the bathroom, that's why I was speeding," or you say, "Oh, but I was only like 2 miles per hour over," or if you go, "Oh, I was just swerving to miss a deer carcass in the road," or if your headlight's out, you say, yeah, I know, it just went out on the way over. Don't say anything. You might want to deny it. Don't deny it. Don't say, "Well, that's not true. My cruise control was set 5 miles under." Or, "That's not true. I checked my headlights this morning." Or, "That's not true. You have no streetlights in this town, so I can't see when I'm going over the middle line." Whatever. Don't deny it. Don't agree to it. Nothing. You say one word. You say, the cop gives you a long speech about why he pulled you over. You say, "Interesting." Or you say, "Okay." He might go, "Why is that interesting?" Or, "Do you agree?" or am I wrong, or something like that. He's going to try to provoke a response out of you. Do not indulge. Do you agree? Am I wrong? Were you not doing that? And what do I say? I don't answer questions. Would you say that's accurate? Would you say that's an accurate summary of what happened? I don't answer questions. Do you have anything you want to say for yourself? I don't answer questions. Now, by this time, I forgot to mention, as they're walking up to your car, put your hands on 10 and 2 and get your license, your registration, and in some states, your insurance card out. Get them out, have them ready. You have to provide them. If you're operating a motor vehicle, you have to provide your identification. It's not like walking on the streets. If you're operating a motor vehicle and a police officer asks you for your ID, you can be arrested for refusing the ID. Don't refuse. You're not getting out of this. If you are the passenger in the car or one of the passengers in your car, passengers in the vehicle do not have to provide identification. Only the one operating the motor vehicle does. I don't answer questions. Get very familiar with that term. Train your passenger to answer that. Cop comes up to the passenger window. Maybe you can answer some questions. I don't answer questions. Passengers don't have to talk to the police officer that pulled over the driver of the vehicle. Give them your license, your registration, your insurance card. Let them cover their bases. Be nice, obviously. Again, I'm being funny with my delivery here, but be nice. Be polite. It goes a long way. It won't solve your problems, but it goes a longer way than being rude does. I don't answer questions. I don't have to tell you where I've been. I don't have to tell you where I'm going. Everything that you tell this officer is getting written down for official record for this stop. Not to mention you're recording it and he's probably recording it. I don't answer questions. Provide what he needs and that's it. Let him write your ticket. You're not getting out of it. You can't talk your way out of this ticket. He wants to write you a ticket. He's got a quota to meet. Just don't give him anything else. If they pull you over for speeding, their question, instead of, do you know why I pulled you over? The question is going to be, do you know how fast you were going? This is a trick question. The cop knows how fast you were going. He's not asking you for the answer. Do you know how fast you were going? Both yes and no are incorrect answers in this scenario. If you say, yes, I know how fast I was going, you're admitting guilt. He pulled you over because he clocked you going faster than the speed limit. You are admitting guilt. Do not say yes. Do you know how fast you were going? If you say, no, I don't, you were reckless driving. You weren't paying attention to your speed limit. He clocked you. He has the receipts of you going above the speed limit. And now he also has you admitting that you weren't observing the speed limits of the road. Do not say yes. Do not say no. You say one sentence always, every single time someone pulls you over and says, do you know how fast you were going? In addition to the hello officer, can I get your name and badge number? Are you wearing a body cam? Is this footage available for public record? You are being recorded. In addition to that prefix, if you're pulled over and they say, do you know how fast you were going? Your answer unequivocally every single time should be these exact words verbatim. I believe I was going the speed limit. I'll say it again. Do you know how fast you were going? Officer, I believe I was going the speed limit. Not, yes, I believe I was going the speed limit. Not, no, I believe I was going the speed limit. No yes, no no. I believe I was going the speed limit. 8 words. Those 8 words don't admit guilt one way or another. Show that you've been observing the speed limit and still leave it open to his word against yours. Now, he has clocked you going fast. Okay? You're not getting out of this. And this is not the time to argue improper equipment. This is not the time to argue reasoning. Unless you have a medical emergency, like you're having a heart attack or your passenger's having a heart attack or your wife's giving birth in the back seat or there's some kind of life-threatening emergency, you're not getting out of this. So, this is a transaction. Here is your step of the transaction. I believe I was going the speed limit. Now he's gonna give some kind of small talk like, oh, I clocked you going 13 over. What's the big hurry? It's a trick. He doesn't want to converse with you. He's got shit to do. You've got shit to do. Or, where are you coming from at this hour? Where are you going that you're in such a rush? You late for work or something? You having trouble with your speedometer? Don't give him anything. You know what I'm going to say next. Officer, I don't answer questions. I believe I was going the speed limit. I don't answer questions. Give him your license and registration and insurance. Let him do what he's got to do and be on your merry way. Say thank you. Have a nice day. That's it. Give him nothing. Give him no content for the story of this investigation. He does not have your best interest at heart. Give him nothing. If an officer pulls you over for suspecting you of drunk driving, maybe you had some drinks with dinner. Maybe you had a beer around lunchtime. Maybe you're fucking hammered. And by the way, if you drunk drive, you're a piece of shit, okay? Don't drink and drive. Not cool, not impressive, not funny. Just, you're a piece of shit if you drink and drive. But if a police officer pulls you over for drinking, and I'm not condoning drinking and driving, obviously. If you drink and drive, you should go to jail. I believe that. You're a danger to me and my kid. You're a danger to my family. Piss off, okay? But this is for the people who are below the legal limit or are completely 100% sober. This is what the advice is for. Because if you're over the legal limit and you're drunk driving, say, yes, officer, I'm fucking wasted right now. I'm a piece of shit. Take me to jail. That's what you should say. But if you're under the legal limit or you're completely sober, you're not driving while intoxicated, you're not driving under the influence, here's how it should go. A police officer will ask you in one form or another, have you been drinking tonight? Or how much have you had to drink tonight? Or do you have drinks with dinner? Or something. All trick questions. You already know the answer to this question. If you are sober and not under the influence, and you know that, you're innocent. You don't have to prove it. You just don't. He has to prove that you're under the influence. He has to prove that you're drunk. You don't have to prove that you're sober. A lot of people figure, oh, well, even me in my example from 2014, I was completely sober, not a drop, nothing. And I thought I had to get out and prove that I was sober. You don't. If a police officer asks you, have you been drinking tonight? You already know the answer to this. The answer is, I'm sorry, I don't answer questions. Would you like my license and registration? You can offer that up. But if you're sober, I don't answer questions. He'll probably get red flags from that, and he'll go, oh, is that so? Oh, well, you mind stepping out and taking a breathalyzer? Well, I guess you got no problem taking a breathalyzer then. Mind if I test that? You mind if I test that sobriety? Think you'd pass a breathalyzer? Dude, he'll test you. He'll trick you into it. But guess what? Guess what? You might not know this. You can legally refuse a roadside breathalyzer. You can refuse it. Do you know why you can refuse a roadside breathalyzer test and a roadside sobriety test? Because if the police officer had actual articulable suspicions about you being drunk behind the wheel, if the police officer actually believed that you were intoxicated or under the influence, he would arrest you and he would bring you down to the station where they have an official breathalyzer at the station, a high-grade one that will actually test the alcohol in your blood, not just your breath. And that is required. You can't refuse that. So if he's going to arrest you for drunk driving, he's going to do it. And he's going to bring you to the station, and you're going to take a real big boy test that will be used in the court of law. You can't refuse that one. And that's why you can legally refuse a roadside breathalyzer. You say, you know what? I'm going to have to not consent to that. And stand your ground on that. If a cop bullies you into consenting for a roadside breathalyzer, contact your lawyer immediately. I don't answer questions. If you were completely sober, not under the influence, if you've got nothing to hide, that means you have nothing to prove. You can refuse a roadside sobriety test. You don't need to do it. That's why they phrase it in such a way. Oh, you mind if I just test you then? I guess you won't mind taking a test then to prove it. Take a little test, I'll send you on your way. How's that sound? No. Refuse it every time. Oh, the real Clemente. Why would you refuse that if you got nothing to hide? Hey, what if that machine breaks? What if that machine has an error? What if that machine falsely shows you breathing above the legal limit and you haven't had a drink all week? What if something's wrong? Then you're getting arrested for drunk driving and you're not even drunk. How does that sound? You think technical errors don't happen? Work in IT a little bit. If there's an actual suspicion of you being drunk behind the wheel, they will make you test at the station when they arrest you. Go with that. Don't offer it, obviously. But you do not have to take a roadside breathalyzer. This also applies to DUI and DWI checkpoints. They can't legally detain your vehicle without probable cause. And refusing a breathalyzer at a DUI or DWI checkpoint is not probable cause. DUI and DWI checkpoints, they pop up around the holidays in downtown areas, There's very little they can do. And you might not know that, but there's very little power a DUI or DWI checkpoint has. And that power is mostly with their eyes and ears. Okay. You're going to pull up, give them your license, registration if they ask it. You have to provide that. You're operating a motor vehicle. But they'll go, "You been drinking tonight?" I don't answer questions. "Excuse me?" I don't answer questions. "Sir, this is a DUI checkpoint. I'm here to make sure you're not drunk driving." I don't answer questions. "You want me to pull you over there and search the vehicle? Make you take a field sobriety test?" I don't answer questions. They can't legally detain your vehicle. They're a checkpoint. They're here to see if they can smell alcohol in your breath or see your bloodshot eyes or smell weed in the car or something. Or see an open six-pack in the passenger seat or a bottle in your cup holder. That's what they're there for. If you're drunk and leaving downtown, they're going to know. They don't need to breathalyze you. They don't want to breathalyze you. They got a lot of traffic to get through. They want the drunk guys. I don't answer questions. If a DUI or DWI checkpoint ever illegally detains your vehicle, contact a lawyer immediately. If a cop asks you to step out of the car, step out of the car. Odds are he's asking you to do it for his own safety. Just do it, man. Step out of the car, comply. Move slow. Don't spook him. Don't give him any reason to say that you were not cooperating. Just step out of the car. But again, I don't answer questions. I invoke the fifth. I do not consent to search and seizures. It's important that you say that. When you step out of the car, I do not consent to any search or seizure. He cannot search your car without seeing some kind of contraband readily visible. I do not consent to search or seizure. And I don't answer questions. Again, comply. Don't be a pain in the ass. Don't give them a reason to twist what you do or say into you not cooperating or you obstructing justice or whatever they might try to do. Okay? Most police officers mean well. They know you mean well. Just comply. Okay? But that doesn't mean that you have to give them anything that could incriminate yourself. Just means don't try to hurt them or pretend you're going to hurt them. If a police officer knocks on your door, the door to your house or apartment or whatever, wherever you live, and just wants to ask you questions, you don't have to answer it. You do not have to answer police at your door. Again, unless you called the cops because you're a victim of a crime or you suspect something, you don't have to talk to them. You don't have to give them anything. You could tell them through the door, please come back with a court order. Please come back with a warrant. On the incredibly unlikely chance they come back with a warrant, ask them to slide it under the door so you can read it. And read it thoroughly, because everything that they're allowed to search is written on that court order. Take a picture of it. But unless they got a warrant, you don't need to talk to them at all. If you do feel like talking to them for whatever reason, step outside of your home, shut the door behind you. Do not let them cross the threshold of your door. But again, you shouldn't even be getting to that point. So, if you are arrested for whatever reason, number one rule, comply. Number two rule, do not say anything. You have the right to remain silent. They're hoping you don't take advantage of that. Say nothing. Ask for a lawyer. One will be provided to you. I am not saying anything without my lawyer present. I am not saying anything without my lawyer present. I could do a whole nother episode about police interrogations and their tactics and things they can say in an interrogation room. But the bottom line is they shouldn't be getting to a point where they're saying anything, because the answer is, as soon as they come into that interrogation room, how you doing today? I don't answer questions. Is that how you want to play it? I'm not saying anything without my lawyer present. I'm not saying anything without my lawyer present. I'm not saying anything without my lawyer present. Sound like an NPC. Sound like a robot. Doesn't matter. You should give them nothing, because they are searching for anything. Also, did you know that police are legally allowed to lie to you? At a traffic stop, on the street, in interrogations, they're allowed to lie to you to get whatever information necessary. They're allowed to lie. But they're not allowed to lie about your rights. So it's important that you know them. Don't believe what they say. They're not here to help you. They're here to put asses in handcuffs. Ask for a lawyer if it gets to that point. And if it doesn't get to that point, I don't answer questions. I don't consent to search or seizure. I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Record everything. Be polite, be cordial, but understand that this is not a dialogue. This is not a conversation. This is not an opportunity for you to talk yourself out of a ticket. You cannot talk yourself out of a ticket. You cannot talk yourself out of being arrested. You do not have to prove that you're sober. You do not have to prove that you were going the speed limit. This is not court. If there's something that a lawyer needs to prove, let the lawyer prove it. Do not give them anything. Do not talk. I do not answer questions. You better get this by now. I recommend you check out this book by James Duane. It's from 2016. It's called You Have the Right to Remain Innocent. Gives you a lot of good examples about people who are completely innocent, who talk to police. People who thought they weren't going to jail. People who didn't have to talk to police, but they did, and that screwed them over. They didn't exercise their rights to remain silent. They didn't exercise their right to not incriminate themselves. And they ended up screwing themselves over just because they wanted to talk. You do not have to talk to police. You do not have to answer their questions. If a police officer is going to arrest you, he's going to arrest you. Your words cannot alter that. They can only ensure it. It's a really interesting topic, man. I really love getting into this because a lot of people just don't know. You know, a lot of police officers, although they are meaning well, regular traffic cops, they mean well, and they're not out to put you in jail. They're not out to put innocent people in jail. They're not evil villains, you know. But they are counting on you not knowing your rights. Be informed. Know your rights. Know what aren't your rights. When you get pulled over by a police officer next, I want you to do what I told you here. I want you to drop the lines. I don't consent to search or seizure. I don't answer questions. Am I being detained? Or am I free to go? And if it gets to it, I am invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. I will not speak without a lawyer present. And don't fall for the bullying tactics. Stand true. Don't start this conversation saying, I don't answer questions, I don't answer questions. And then they say, I mean, if you want to play it this way, we'll go this route and we'll just start booking you. Don't be like, oh, well, wait, I'll answer some questions. Don't do it, man. Don't let them trick you. Experienced police officers know the game. And it is a game. A lot of innocent people go to jail for crimes they didn't commit. I mean, I'd love to know the numbers of how many people got arrested for drunk driving when they were sober, just because the breathalyzer or the sobriety test failed. Let's take it back to my real world example from the beginning. The story I told you about from Halloween 2014 when I was pulled over and tested and all this. Let's look at all the different openings that these two police officers used on me, and I just barely got out of it because I was 100% innocent. First of all, the police officer tailed me from McDonald's like 2 miles up the road. He can follow me as long as he wants, waiting for me to screw up. And screw up, I guess I did. He asked me, do you know why I pulled you over? And I said, no, I think I was going the speed limit. That told him immediately that I wasn't here to play. I didn't know the game. He was about to have a field day with me on this holiday night because I didn't know any better. He asked me to step out and take a breathalyzer, and whatever way he worded it, I consented to it. I consented to the breathalyzer. I said, yeah, whatever. I'm sober. I'm on nothing. I'll do whatever test you got. That was my mistake. He pulled me out and patted me down and made me blow into the thing and walk a straight line and do the arm test, everything. Because I consented to it. Because in the back of my mind, I was telling myself I was innocent and I was sober. Didn't realize I was putting myself on the line and at the mercy of judgment. He even tried it with the last of the sobriety tests. He even tried it again when he said, well, your left eye struggled a little bit following the pen and the light. Hey, first of all, it's 1 a.m. and you're shining a flashlight in my eyes. I'm not surprised that it struggled a little bit. He said, well, your left eye struggled a little bit. So it means you're on something. With the certainty with which he said it, he's never been more wrong about something in his life. You're on something, you're wrong. But he was opening up that dialogue, and he paused and left the awkward silence gap, waiting for me to take the bait. And luckily, I didn't take it. The second cop who came over to the window, sticking his head in my window, all I smell is McDonald's. I didn't say I don't consent to a search or seizure, so he's poking his head in where it shouldn't belong. Asking my passengers what we've been up to tonight, what I might be on. They don't have to answer questions. They're passengers in my car. Answering all the questions and not videotaping. Dude, rookie mistakes through and through. I could have been arrested there for driving under the influence when I wasn't under the influence. I mean, that was a very real chance. He literally tried to say I was on something and I wasn't. It's time for you to know how this game is played at traffic stops. Be educated. I don't answer questions. I don't consent to search or seizures. No, I'm going to have to refuse that roadside breathalyzer. These are things that you should know. Obviously, first and foremost, don't commit crimes, dumbass. But even if you're innocent, it doesn't matter. Don't talk to police. Don't answer questions. Next person who gets pulled over and uses these tips, please tell me how it went. And please tell me you videotaped it. Anyways, I ran on a little long here, but you get the gist. Again, I am not a lawyer. I am not a police officer. Do not take what I say as legal advice. Disclaimer, disclaimer, asterisks. I am not a lawyer. This is not official legal counsel. I'm just telling you what I've learned. Anyways, I'm the real Clemente. Thank you guys for listening to me yet again. And until next time, I don't answer questions.